What's going on, ladies and gents? It's your boy Neosynthesis, and I know I already brought you guys this deck yesterday, but I was able to get a lot more games in today. I've already made it through Bronze pretty quickly, however many games it took, I don't really remember, but I've made a lot of adjustments to the deck, and I feel like this is a lot more, or a very strong pick, and this is a list that I would be happy like taking into a tournament. So I built it basically against to be able to win against the strongest decks in the meta, like so contenders like VW Mirrors is something you need to be looking out for. I'm really not teched for Eldritch, but obviously in like a tournament setting, you'd probably want to at least build your side deck out for Eldritch. It just so happens that this particular deck, I'm not really just teching for Eldritch. If I start encountering a lot of it, some cards might come out that are not particularly good against Eldritch, and I might put in some cards like Lightning Storm and Duster. But for now, this is what I'm running with. Basically, if you guys don't know how VW works, you just really want to go first and set up your big giant floodgate boss. But we'll get into all that later. So basically, we are playing. We're just playing like a it's essentially like an FTK deck when you make this card, and I'll explain what this card does later. I actually know what all the cards do now, a lot better than I did when I made my first list, but I was really just trying to show off what I was playing. So anyway, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the standard way we always do deck profiles here on my channel. We'll talk about the hand trap lineup, and then like the cards that aren't really part of the engine, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the deck. Alright, so we're running 3 Maxi. This card is a something I heard a lot when this card was legal in the TCG is that this card is a bug. It is in fact a bug. It's not fair. Play 3. It's the most broken card in the format. And then we play 3 Ash. That counters the most broken card in the format. We can go ahead and negate Maxi with Ash. And then there's also, a myriad of other great things we can negate. So yeah, it's like the second best hand trap in the format. We love it. We're playing 1 Nibiru. Nibiru's pretty good. You guys, you might question why I'm only playing the 1. I don't really want to draw Nibiru. This is like a pretty heavy combo deck, so putting cards in that aren't part of the combo or that don't like help protect your combo are a bit dangerous. But we have this in here for a very specific reason, and I'm sure those of you who know like what every card does already know why it's in here. Just the singular copy. Duel and Lockbird is really broken against my deck. In particular, and then it's also very good against Drytron. It's really good against like the entire field, to be completely honest. Duel and Lockbird also will stop the bug. So yeah, they draw like 1 card with Maxi, and then you can like stop them from continuing. So Droll's good, and I might actually see an uptick in the number of Duel and Lockbirds played in this deck. This is like the first deck I'll ever feature on my channel that's not 40 cards as well. I just really couldn't find a way to fit everything. You guys probably, and it's actually the 40th or the 41st and the 42nd card in this deck are actually, it's not really that simple because of the way that the deck's structured. And then I guess the next card we'll talk about is the 3 Crossout Designator. So if you guys don't know what Crossout Designator does, it is a quick play spell card, so that means like you can activate it from your hand on your opponent's turn in like a chain, or on your turn in a chain, sorry, not on your opponent's turn. Or you can, have it set and chain it like a trap card, if you guys somehow don't know how a quick play spell card works. But then this card essentially just says, declare 1 name of a card, banish that declared card name from your main deck, and if you do, negate that card's effects, as well as the activated effects on the field with the same original name, and you can only use 1 Crossout Designated return. So this card's actually really strong in a format where there is this bug still legal, so being able to, stop Maxi, stop Ash Blossom, and then we're also like teching basically the 1 Nibiru and the 1 Droll, so that if we draw this card and they activate like a Nibiru or a Droll on us, we can have protection against it. So in this situation, in that very specific instance, Crossout Designator is actually a little bit better than Called by the Grave, and I haven't really had too much opportunity to test out with this card, but I really like the concept of it, so I'm running with it. And I'm definitely willing to be proven that this card's not very good, but yeah, I really like the idea of cross-outing a Nibiru or cross-outing a Droll or like any of these cards. In the same vein, like it may just be better to play 2 Call by the Grave and not do the whole Crossout Designator engine, and then that way maybe we can play like 1 more Droll. Because I guess we could just take out the Droll and or we could take out the Nibiru. See, I like being able to protect yourself against Nibiru is basically why I'm trying out this card instead of a card like Call by the Grave, which would be the second alternative here. And then we're also not running another card that I do have, which is Droplet. I'm really just trying to test out cross. Actually, no. I'm definitely putting one Droplet in because now I can cross out. This was like part of the point of playing Crossout Designator, right? Because now I can also cross out the one Droplet as soon as assuming that I don't draw the Forbidden Droplet. So, yeah. And then the Droplet, essentially, if you guys don't know what Droplet does, just being able to, like, spell speed 3 negate entire boards just by sending cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. And then, it's a little battle trick having their attack as well, but negating their effects, and usually they can't respond to it if you discard the correct type of cards. Droplet's really strong, and it's really, really good versus our deck, so as long as they're not discarding a spell card, we should be able to cross out Designator Droplet. So if we set up a board with our True King and they actually have the Droplet, as long as they're not discarding a spell, we should be able to stop that. So that's another advantage that Crossout Designator has over Call by the Grave, and particularly why I think that it's interesting to run it in this deck. All right. I think that's it for all the defensive and hand trap cards because I did already talk about Droplet. So I guess next we'll just talk about the consistency cards. 3 Desires, it's really broken. You don't run any cards that are engine requirements per se in your deck. Usually you're going to be able to search out just about everything you need, get it out of the deck quickly. So this helps you draw into the stuff that's not searchable, i.e. your hand traps, Crossout Designator, E-Telly, this Forbidden Burial Goods, and then the other consistency card we run is Pot of Prosperity. So Pot of Prosperity, we don't want to run more than one of this card because it's really only good to resolve the one because we don't have that many useless cards in our extra deck. Well, obviously no card in our extra deck is completely useless, but usually when you're activating Prosperity, you can see kind of the play lines you're going to go down, and yeah, you can hopefully banish the cards that you won't need for the game, and then you should be able to either set up a Calamities or set up maybe just a negate and a decent board. I'm not 100% sure what all the permutations of this deck's final boards are just quite yet because I'm still getting more and more familiarized with it. But one Prosperity seems to be found in just about every list, and I can understand why. This deck is not as minimalistic of a combo deck as some other decks I've featured on this channel. It does need more than 1 or 2 cards sometimes to really get its optimal board put together. So having this extra consistency is really good. So we definitely want to run one of that card. And then Foolish Burial Goods. So 3 of our Virtual World spell and traps get effects in the graveyard. We can banish them and get an effect. So yeah, this card is obvious in my opinion. 2, E-Telly, just being able to get us either Lulu or the other level 3 Psychic from our deck is super clutch. Most of the time we're not getting Lulu. Most of the time we can get the other Psychic because it will basically continue to accrue us value. I'll go over what the targets do for this as soon as I'm done talking about the cards that are not actual VW cards, and I think that's now. So that does it for all the stuff that's not Virtual World. Now I'll get into the actual nitty-gritty of the deck, card for card wise. So I guess I'll just mention this one, Hime Nien. So if this card is if a level 3 or if a level 3 monster or monsters is normal special summoned to your field, when this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card as a tuner from the graveyard. So, and then banish it when it leaves the field. So that's a pretty standard effect for cards that have recursion, similar to this. And then also for the rest of the turn, we can only special summon level 3 or higher monster. That effect is not relevant. We've built our deck around that effect. And then if this card's banished, we can target one of our other banished cards, shuffle it into the deck. Right. So this card's obviously it should clearly be screaming extender to you. Getting this card off of E-Telly is super cool. Being able to put it in your graveyard, and then whenever a level 3 is summoned, just being able to summon it back out. And there's level manipulation as well in this deck, so it's not always technically a level 3. The fact that it's a tuner will oftentimes be important to help you make your crazy turn 1 boards. Or, help you get into an OTK situation. There's a couple of cards we run in this extra deck that are just built to blow people up on turn 2 if they're not setting up good enough boards. So yeah, that's Nien Nien. Super good card. I don't want to run 3 You know, at some point it may go up to 3. You know, we'll see how this deck progresses for me, but I've kind of liked 2 because it doesn't really feel like I want to draw this card too often. Like, there are a lot of cards in this deck that make you discard, so sometimes it is nice to have to just discard this card and get it in the graveyard, but I would think I'd rather send this card from my deck than send it from my hand, just because I feel like it's pretty obvious, like that it's better to send cards from your deck to your hand, this card doesn't really do anything in your hand except for be good to discard, which is like not a good reason to run it. To run 3 of it, it's definitely good at 2, because you do play Desires in this deck, and you don't want to banish both of them like desperately. So hopefully you can get that out of the deck before you activate Desires. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So this is like the best Virtual World. Virtual World Mahime Lulu. Right, if this card's in your hand, we can target 1 Virtual World card we control, send 1 Virtual World card of a different type from our deck to our graveyard. So say we target a spell, we can send a trap or a monster. And then you guys can kind of see, like, I hope that makes sense. Like, if we target a spell, we can send a trap or a monster. And if we target a trap, we can send a spell or a monster. If we target a monster, I really hope I don't have to say that last part of that phrase. I think it makes sense. And then we can add the type that we didn't send. So, like, if we send a trap, we can add if we targeted a spell and sent a trap, we can add a monster. If we targeted a monster and sent a trap, we can add a spell. So, like, I think that makes sense. It is like an extra layer of thinking that you unfortunately have to do in this deck. It's not really that much, and once you play it a lot, it becomes quite intuitive. And then has the standard same VW like restriction effect of level 3 or higher, so that we just don't play like I don't know, weird stuff. We don't do like Halka Fibrax combos. With this is really why that restriction's on there, I think. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it for Lulu. So this card is just like insane, obviously, as being able to send a card from our deck to our graveyard, getting its either like the effect of the card that we mentioned before, that basically is just like going to resummon itself. Maybe one of the spell or trap effects we'll get into a little later that have effects in the graveyard are super clutch, and then we can add another Virtual World to just keep extending. So yeah, Lulu's like the best one for sure. And then Virtual World Gigi. So this card is a level 3 worm. It's not a tuner either, so like we can't get it off of E-Tele or anything like that, but it is actually a really good card. Just as like a generic level 3 extender, right? Because basically if this card's in our hand, we can target 1 VW card we control, send a VW card of a different type from our deck to our graveyard, and then special summon this card, so from our hand. And then during the end phase, we can add 1 Virtual World monster from our deck to our hand, which is, it's nice being able to add plays for next turn, always. So yeah, this card's basically just used to make sure you have follow up for next turn, and obviously as being like a level 3 extender, it will allow you just to just keep playing, and that's like your goal a lot of the time with this deck, is just to keep going, because so many cards get you draws and get you more extensions. All right, next on the list is the Virtual World Roshi Lao Lao. So Lao Lao is kind of like he's kind of like a jank wolf bark effect. So if you guys don't know what I mean by a wolf bark effect, basically, I'll just read it verbatim. If this card is in your hand, you can target 1 Virtual World card you control, send 1 virtual card of a different type from your deck to graveyard, and if you special summon this card, and then special summon this card. Yeah, special summon this card. Sorry, you special summon this card from your hand, and then you can special summon 1 Virtual World monster from your graveyard in defense position, with a different name than the card that was sent to the graveyard, but negate its effects. I'm sorry, I just read that. I think I just like misread that. So we can target 1 Virtual World card, send 1 Virtual card of a different type from our deck to our graveyard, and then special summon this card. Then you can special summon 1 Virtual World monster from your graveyard with a different name than the card sent to the graveyard, but negate its effects. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to discard or anything, but just, yeah, you essentially just get to get a Foolish Burial, which is super cool, like sending a card from the deck to the graveyard, and then we're able to special summon this guy, and then he will also be allowed to target 1 monster, as long as you didn't send the card of the same name, and then special summon it to the field. So that helps us, obviously get into our rank 6s, our level 9 synchros, our level 6 synchros. We can get into a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different permutations with this deck, and it's definitely not always straightforward, and like when explaining it in like a deck profile can sometimes be really difficult because it does, like, you actually just have to play it for it to make sense most of the time, at least for me. Alright, so I'm going to move on, but I think you guys understand what that card does. Virtual World, Kieran, Lily. So if this card is in your hand, we can target one Virtual World card we control. So pretty much the recurring theme of the Virtual World cards is that we want to have a face-up Virtual World card to target so that we can proc all of our effects in our hand. So yeah, if your opponent's got a Virtual World card face-up, just make it so that they don't, and they probably can't play. If this card is in your hand, we can target one Virtual World card we control, send one Virtual World card of a different type from our deck to our graveyard, and then special summon this card, and then we can send one more Virtual World card of the third type from our deck to our graveyard. So this card can load us up on graveyard effects if we if we want to send two different cards. In the theoretical world, we're targeting it's kind of the same thing as Lulu, right? Where we're targeting a trap, and we can send a spell, and then we can send a monster. We can send a monster, or we target a monster, and then we can send a spell and a trap. So, just all the Virtual World cards have that effect, basically, where they care what kind of card that you target, and then you can send the other types. Just pretty much exactly how I just said. Yeah, you can just target the one type, and then the other type is the next part of the effect, and then the third type is the third part of the effect. So there's a couple of cards like that. So just kind of keep track of what's going to happen when you activate the effect, what you're targeting, which is not something I was 100% doing always when I was first playing this deck, and I'm just, I'm literally brand new to this deck. I probably have 10 games with it or even less, so bear with me as I kind of learn the correct way to play it and the correct way to think about cards. I'm definitely going to be getting better as I get up towards the gold ranks and the platinum ranks. So I've only bear with me here. I will have probably some better tips and tricks as I kind of get higher and higher on the ladder. And then this card that I did not know what it really did last time I did this deck profile, and I mentioned that I didn't really know what I was doing, but this card's effect is actually just place one Virtual Gate card from your deck face up in your spell trap zone. So oftentimes we're going to be getting this card, which is a disruption effect. This card is a negation effect, but it's really good to be able to just put a Virtual World card face up on our field, like I said before, because the VW cards, and I'm just going to say VW because the Virtual World, that is saying that verbatim over and over and over again, just those words just get slurred and they don't sound right after you say them a million times. So we're just going to switch to VW from going forward. So being able to put a VW card face up so that your VWs can proc their effects in the hand, and the ability to either tutor a spell, say if we need to send a trap, or if we need to send a spell, we can activate a trap and then send a spell. So that's super clutch, being able to choose. And then there are other effects, right? If we have two face-up VW cards, we can make our VWs gain attack, and then if we have 3+, we can mill 3 cards from the top of our deck, and then 4. I don't even think we can proc this, so I'm not even going to mention this effect. But just being able to tutor any VW spell trap from our deck and just place it face up is amazing. Yeah, we're definitely down. For this card, 3 of is a must because yeah, it's amazing. King Long. So King Long we have 3 of in our deck because it's basically a card that we want to send. The effect while it's face up is okay, we can banish one Virtual War card from our graveyard and then target one face up monster on the field, negate its effects till the end of the turn. It's kind of average, it's not really the best, but the effect of it in the graveyard is that we can banish this card from our graveyard, add one VW monster from our deck to our hand, and then send one card from our hand to our graveyard. So that effect is actually amazing, being able to tutor out whatever Virtual World card that we need in the specific situation. Definitely has a lot of upside to it. I think that is pretty obvious that being able to tutor any card from our deck is going to be good, and then the additional effect of being able to send a dead card that maybe gets a graveyard effect, like the Mahime or not the Mahime, this one. Yeah, the Hime Nyan Nyan or something. It's clutch. This effect is like super vital to the consistency of the deck and just being able to see all your cards that you want to see. Next up is the Virtual World Gate Chuchi. So this is like part of basically VW's turn 1 board almost every time. This card gets activated like all the time off of Virtual World City Kwanloon, like the Walled City card that I just showed you guys right there. And essentially all that is going to basically mean is that we can target one face-up card on the field, shuffle 2 of our banished VW cards with different names back into our deck, and then destroy that card. So just like having basically a Zodiac Dryden effect on a spell trap is definitely good. And yeah, we run 2 of this card because we don't want to draw it. We really just want to activate it from our deck. So I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Because it's a trap card. But activating it from our deck is like we basically get to cheat its like slowness. So trap cards are inherently pretty slow, right? I feel like that's not an inarguable point, but if we can activate them from our deck face up, they really aren't trap cards anymore. Like they're trap cards in the sense that we can activate them on our opponent's turn, like activate the effect, which is obviously the reason that this card is like super good. This card's not like, Zodiac, or not Zodiac, Tri-Brigade Revolt, where it's just so good that we don't care about it being slow. This card is just good because it's actually just, like, not slow, because we can, like, essentially, like, quote-unquote, cheat, and get cards that normally shouldn't be allowed to, be allowed to be activated like on our turn. Like we can pop cards on our turn with this card, and then we can pop a card on his turn. So yeah, Chuchi's really good. And then Chuchi has the Grave effect that we can basically just target one of our VW cards and increase its level or decrease its level by 3 until the end of the turn. So that is super nice for being able to make our levels match up for a synchro play or an Xyz play, or yeah, anything of those kind of varieties. Getting your cards between, I mean, pretty much level 3, 6, or 9 are like the only 3 levels we're interacting with in this deck. So being able to like either make them both match up at 6, or make one of them 6 and one of them 3, so we can go into a 9, is super important. So we want to play 2 of this card. Getting its graveyard effect and its on-field effect are both good. You don't want to play 3 because you never want to set this card. It's just not something you ever want to do. And then we play 1 Zhuanwu. This card we actually don't even want to activate from our deck. We just want to send it from our deck, so we just run the 1. This card's effect essentially on the field is pointless. Like during the battle phase, if you control the VW, we can target one face-up monster in the field, change its battle position. Like this is like such a weak effect. But the graveyard effect is that we can banish this card, and then special summon 1 VW monster from our graveyard, negate its effect, and then send 1 card from our hand to our graveyard. So it allows us to get bricks out of our hands. It allows us to, obviously this is like one of the key extenders we have in our deck, because we're going to be sending it all the time from our deck to our graveyard, and then just using it to either special summon another 6 to get into a 9 synchro, or a 6 XYZ, or who knows, whatever we need for the situation. Maybe we need to get a level 3 tuner. Maybe we need to get a level 3 non-tuner. But Zhuanwu is super vital to just run as a one-off. You really don't want to draw this card, like even more than you don't want to draw this one. You just want this card. You want the ability to have this card banished in your graveyard to just keep going. All right. So I think that's every card in the main deck. We'll go ahead and run through the extra deck. We're on the 1 Charge Warrior. This card, when this card synchro summoned, we can just draw 1 card, level 6 synchro. That's the only effect that we care about. And then this card can attack all special monsters your opponent controls once each. So sometimes we need to clear a board or something like that. That might come up. We run the 1 Coral Dragon. Coral Dragon's actually super cool. It's a level 6 tuner synchro. So sometimes you have a situation where you have, I guess this is not really the situation, but there are cool times where you can go like Coral Dragon, and then you can synchro this Coral Dragon off into a 9 to just get like an extra draw. Say you're not going into the Croco Dragon anyway, or you have like, yeah, I guess that wouldn't work, but It is also the cool effect of being able to once per turn discard one card, target one card your opponent controls, and destroy it. And then, like I said earlier, if this Singer's Summon card is sent from the field to the graveyard, we draw one card. So both these cards, they serve similar functions. Obviously, Coral Dragon allowing us to pop cards our opponent controls at the cost of discarding one card. Sometimes is really cool. And then, like I said, when it gets sent to the graveyard, when it was Synchro Summoned, being able to draw one card is also great. Juju, so this card is like really good versus rogue strategies because it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while you have 2 or more monsters in your graveyard with the same original type and attribute but different names. So we've got tons of that kind of stuff going on. Like there's Psychic Winds in this deck, and then there's Worm Earths in this deck. So we're pretty much always going to have, and then yeah, there's multiple of each. So pretty much always going to be able to have that effect. And then the other effect is that once per turn, or maybe it's not. So it's actually not even once per turn, but we can banish 2 monsters we can banish 2 monsters like we said that are like matchy. So like Psychic Wind or like Earthworm, and then target one card on the field, send it to the graveyard. Oh yeah, we can only use this effect once per turn. That's what I thought. I'll say this is kind of crazy if it's not once per turn, but it is once per turn. So being able to like pop a back row that you're scared of, or being able to pop like a pesky monster, it doesn't even really pop it; it just sends it to the graveyard, which is broken. So Thunder Dragons hate this card too. if you can make it under Colossus, which might be tough because Colossus stops searching, and yeah, that could be a problem. But you don't run into too much of that on the ladder, and you're going to be hoping to go first anyway. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This is pretty much just a card that we summon off of Ultimaya Zolkin. Essentially, it just says once per turn when another monster effect is activated, we can negate the activation if you destroy the monster, and if you do, we are going to gain attack equal to the monster that we negated until the end of this turn. And then if this card battles an opponent's level 5 or higher monster, this card will basically get like an honest effect versus it. So yeah, Crystal Wing is good. I think it's the best card we can summon off of Ultimaya Zolkin. I see it in just about every single list, which I know doesn't automatically make it right, but it kind of does. If there's not a better level 8 Synchro Dragon out there to summon off of Zolkin, or if there is, please let me know. I just don't think that there is, because the only one I could really think of that has come out since I played would be like Boral Sword, but Boral Sword's not even that good. Or Boral Savage, it's like a good level 8, but we can't even use Boral Savage in this deck because we're not making links. So it wouldn't have negations. Let me know if there's something I'm forgetting that's actually good to make on turn, like a defensive option. I assume there's probably some funny offensive options that can attack like 4 times or something like that. It's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something like Crystal Wing, but maybe better if it exists. I'm not certain that it does though. Alright, so that's it for Crystal Wing. I talked about that card way too much. Cloud Castle. Cloud Castle just says when this card is synchro summoned, we can target 1 level 9 monster in our graveyard. Special summon that target. So that's super cool, being able to go into our King of Calamities if we get disrupted during our combo, if one of our other level 9s gets sent to the graveyard. So you want to kind of keep this one in your extra deck, Cloud Castle, so that you can resummon either maybe Crocodragon or discard as your other level 9. But Crocodragon, let me just read Crocodragon for you guys. It just gains 500 attack and defense for every card in your hand. And then when you synchro summon with this card, you draw cards equal to the non-tuners used. So most of the time you're just going to be drawing 1 because you're making that with either a level 6 tuner and a level 3 monster, or a level 3 monster and a level 6 tuner. We really don't want to draw 2 cards off of Crocodragon. It's not horrible to draw 2 cards off of Crocodragon. It's just you're better served utilizing those resources to make another level 9 synchro and not worrying so much about drawing the extra card. But yeah, Crocodragon's like a bread and butter card for sure. Vermilion Dragon Mech, this card's also pretty good, just allowing us to get after some back row most of the time, or maybe a pesky monster that we know is not gonna get a bunch of effects when we destroy it, right? Because we don't want to be triggering our opponent's cards whenever we can afford to not do it. We want to avoid to do that. We want to avoid doing that. Sorry, excuse my weird English bug I just had right there. I've been getting Maxied too much. The bug's starting to creep into my creep into my brain. Anyway, this card just basically says we can banish one tuner from our hand or our graveyard. So we're going to have tuners in our graveyard, no problem. And then just target one card on the field and destroy it. And then if this Synchro Summon card is destroyed by card effect, we can target one of our banished tuners added to our hand. So that second effect doesn't come up too often, but it is, you know, this card is really good for helping us just. I don't want to say it's really good. It is like okay, right? It's not the greatest card in the deck, but it is one of the few like level 9 synchros that's not going to require us to use like. If you guys remember, like if you have played the game for a long time, you remember how like Mistworm and like Trishula require you know, like 3 monsters or like 2 or more non-tuners. We don't want to pay like all those taxes on those cards, so we just don't. We just go for the ones that are like easy, generic to summon. Maybe there's some other level 9s I'm not thinking of that could be useful, could be more useful than this one. I'm always happy to change my deck lists, but I think Dragon Mech is pretty vital to just be able to pop through back row. And then the actual good level 9 synchro you make. And in the video before, I actually made a pretty big mistake. You do want to just spam go into this card so you can overlay it and get it into the graveyard as soon as possible, because it essentially has like an kind of a Dragon Ruler effect. So if you guys are familiar with the Dragon Rulers, which I suppose some of you might not be super familiar with those cards, because at this point they are super old, which is kind of weird for me to say because I remember when they came out. Anyway, this card is so this card basically is like it's a walking quote unquote macrocosmos. It's not quite as good as macrocosmos because cards can still be sent from the hand to the graveyard, just not. That's really weird. So they can still be sent from the. I'm sorry. I'm like looking at something in real life, but. They can still be sent from the hand to the graveyard, so, you know, hand traps are still live, so it's not quite as good as a real Macrocosmos, but it's still nice being able to banish all the cards on the field, so, like, this is good against Eldritch, it's good against a lot of different stuff, but the effect that is really, really broken about this card is, so I guess I'll mention the other effect that's not quite that good. When your monster declares an attack, we can return one monster from our in the banish zone to the owner's graveyard, and then during our main phase, except for the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, we can banish 2 monsters from our graveyard with the different original types and attributes from each other, and especially this card from our graveyard. So, yeah, that's awesome. Like, that is exactly what I mentioned before. It's like a Dragon Ruler effect, just being able to like recur itself. Yeah, 2800 beater walking Macrocosmos that recurs itself is pretty good, and then obviously it gains the reason we really love it so much in this deck is because we're overlaying it all the time, and then we can get the value from it being in the graveyard, right? Because it'll be detached pretty quick, and I'll talk about the card that we're actually detaching it to activate in just a second. But just know that QB is super good, and this is like the first one you want to go into, or maybe the second one if you know you can make 2, because Croco Dragon's just so strong. Ultimize Zulkin pretty much just allows us to cheat summon out, and like sorry for like using so much jargon. It's just something that I'm like so accustomed to at this point, but this card essentially allows us to cheat out Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. If you guys don't know what this card says, must be synchro summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 level 5 or higher monsters with the same level to the graveyard, 1 tuner, 1 non-tuner. So it's like kind of a synchro summon, but it's not necessarily a synchro summon, right? Because it can't be synchro summoned, so you special summon it. So if your opponent activates that weird C card that like prevents you from synchro summoning, it just they're just gonna be sad. And then we can basically, when a spell or trap card is set on our field, so if we can like set a normal spell or trap card, anything like that, we can special summon 1 power tool synchro monster or level 7 or 8 synchro monster from our extra deck. And then while we control other synchro monsters, this card cannot be targeted for card effects or monster effects or attacks, I think. Yeah. So Zulkin is just basically a way for us to cheat out Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. I just wanted to read it to make sure that it didn't say like synchro summon that monster. But no, it doesn't. So if your opponent makes it so you can't synchro summon, you can still make Zulkin and get out Crystal Wing, and yeah, they probably won't expect that. Very similar to the way that the Thunder Dragon stuff works. Alright, so that will do it for the synchros. before I get into the XCs, I just do want to mention that I'm not necessarily running the most standard extra deck. I feel like there's one flex extra deck spot, and so I'll just go ahead and talk about it. I'm running Levier, the Sea Dragon. I just want to try it. There's a lot of times where I have like 2 level 3s or something like that, and perhaps a Levier can help me extend. But, I really just want to try it. Like, I feel like it's not too good and it requires a lot of setup, but I don't feel like I really get that much value out of making, like Gossip Shadow, or like, I had Totem Bird in here for a little bit until I realized how bad Totem Bird was in combination with the old, like the boss monster of this deck, right? The True King. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way before I got into the rest of the stuff that I think is essential for the extra deck. You can play whatever you want in that slot. Break Sword, this is a card basically just has a Scrap Dragon effect. Yeah, it's super good for grinding through back row. A lot of the time that's what you're going to be doing in a deck like this. And yeah, the 2000 beater with like a multiple Scrap Dragon effect on it, like where we can get Scrap Dragon. We can get that effect off, multiple times throughout a duel. Is super strong and worth running for sure. All right. Next is M7. M7 is like super vital. So we actually are able to go into a lot of different rank 6s. So that's why I like that. I think that Levier might eventually get replaced with a different rank 6. I'm not 100% sure what I exactly want to do when it comes to that card, but I will let you guys know as soon as if I actually ever figure out what my plan is with those cards. I will update you guys on like what I want like my perfect extra deck to look like. It's not like I'm lacking any resources, right? So I can make whatever card I wanted. So if you guys know like what the secret tech or like what some super good, what the super good 15th VW extra deck card should be, let me know. But we definitely want to run Ptolemy because basically adding a monster from our graveyard to our hand with its effect, or like bouncing a monster that they control back to the hand. So like if you guys don't know what M7 does, we can just attach material, target one card on the field or in the graveyard, and return that target to the hand. So being able to like recur our own resources with this card is obviously insane. Being able to bounce cards in our opponent's hand or on our opponent's field back to their hand is also definitely an insane thing to do. So yeah, we definitely need M7 in this deck. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, like recurring like Lulus, or recurring like this card that's gonna like special summon a card from the graveyard, or like this card that's gonna search in the end phase. Like there's a lot of monsters, or Maxi or Ash Blossom or Droll Bird in whatever situation. M7 is like super good, so if you can make it like with 2 level 6s, yeah, it's definitely worth playing. Wait, why can I not? Oh, I don't have any of the Ultra Rare Essence right now. But I have like Ultra Rares to disenchant if I wanted to, I think. I guess I don't, but I'll be opening more packs, Copium. Anyway, Utopia Beyond is not a card that I see in every extra deck, but I actually really, really love this card. Essentially, it just says that if this card succeeds summoned, all of the attack of your opponent's monsters becomes 0. So a lot of times you can find some crazy OTKs where they might have a board with a bunch of attack points. And yeah, you just end up dealing like 8k damage through like a 3000 beater that they didn't think would get reduced to 0. I just think this card's really funny. And the only effect that you really need to know about it is the one that I mentioned before. Yeah, because the other effect like has to do with Utopia, and we don't even play any of that stuff. So yeah, just turning all of our opponents' monsters to 0 attack monsters can oftentimes find us lethal damage. So yeah, we run Utopia Beyond because it like cheese wins us games. Zeus because we're running an XYZ deck, and I feel like it's pretty standard that you want to have a Zeus in your deck. Maybe I should make this level 3. Like I think there might be a level 3 that can like attack directly. That might be better to like make for the Zeus package. So I'll look into that. Anyway, and then the final card we're going to talk about in the deck, the most important card. So maybe I should have talked about this one first, but I feel like it's better to leave it for the end, just because of how good it actually is. But the true king of all calamities, if you guys don't know what calamities does, so this deck is essentially just King of Calamities Turbo. Like, no cap, you just try to make this card and hope your opponent scoops when they see it because of how frustrating it is. This card, as a quick effect, we can attach one XYZ material from it, declare one attribute, turn all face-up monsters on the field to that attribute, and then this turn, monsters of the declared attribute, which, you know, whatever we declare is essentially what's going to be, like, law on the board, because we're going to be doing this during draw phase, so they really are going to have minimalistic chance to respond to it. So say we make everything like divine or whatever attribute. They can't activate any effects on the field, period, or attack with monsters on the field, period. Because all monsters will be divine for the rest of the turn, even if the True King is outed. So even if you like Kaiju the True King in my main phase, you still can't activate any cards for the rest of the turn, any monsters for the rest of the turn. So this card's like a really, really degenerate floodgate, and like essentially, if your opponent doesn't have an out to it, you'll win in about, like, you'll win in 2 turns because it's got 3k attack. You have a lot of like explosiveness within the deck already, so it's not necessarily too much of a stretch to be able to just like outright kill your opponent if they're going to be passing to you with like a weaker board. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, the whole deck is basically designed around making QB and making Cargo Dragon drawing you a card, QB basically having its really cool like Dragon Ruler effect. So you go into that on your opponent's turn, you're going to detach the QB, your opponent will be locked out for a turn. Theoretically, they just pass back to you. You activate your QB effect, banishing the multiple cards, special summoning that out. You can attack with Calamities and QB for, you know, around 6k, 5.8k, and then you can detach material again from Calamities, lock them out again, and they lost. So kind of a degenerate deck for sure, but I've always maintained the ideology that if you would like a card to be banned, you should play it and play it like maximally optimally, so that a lot of people are frustrated by it and it becomes like a popular card to dislike, right? Because the only way that cards ever get banned is if they're popular enough and they're taking up enough like tournament slots. As sad as it is, I think that I'm not 100% sure what we're gonna get for a ban list on this in this game, or if we're gonna be getting ban lists anytime soon. But all I can do is kind of just hope and just pretend like this is just like regular Yu-Gi-Oh, and all I need to do is just like play really well with the deck and just like prove that it's super strong, and then Konami will obviously ban it, right? This card particularly just needs to be banned, Calamities. And this deck doesn't die when Calamities gets banned, right? But it changes its strategy considerably. This deck is a lot worse if Calamities gets banned because of the bug being in the format. So like, if Calamities was banned, I don't think you would play this deck. But anyway, I think I've explained everything. I told you guys I would actually come out with a quote-unquote like good deck profile today that actually explained what the cards did and gave you guys a little bit more context about what the deck does, as I kind of get more context about what the deck does just from more and more playtime. I'm by no means an expert, and I'm always willing to, you know, learn or improve my like deck building, my understanding of the cards. You know, maybe I'm just saying stuff that's completely wrong. Like, let me know. I always am looking out for you know, ways to improve. Like, that's the reason I'm even playing this deck, is because I don't really know how it works. So I want to play it that way I can understand, you know, how to beat it, where its like weak points are in its combo, like where like, oh man, an Ash right here will end my turn, or like a Droll right now is like perfect, or like when they do this it means their hand's good, or when they do that it means their hand's bad. And I feel like really the only way you can truly get comfortable with the deck and like learning how to beat it is to just play it, because otherwise you'll be missing like context, and yeah, it's just not really as easy to play against a deck if you've not piloted it yourself. So yeah, we'll be piloting this bad boy up to Platinum 1. Shouldn't be too difficult. I want to try to do it before the start of the XYZ festival so I can grind that festival on my main account. Anyway, I think I've kept you guys here long enough. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all the support we've gotten recently. Oh my lord, it's a 45-minute video, but I think it's worth watching, especially if you have no background on the deck. I explained literally what every single card did, my choices, everything. So even if you don't want to watch the whole thing, maybe if you're at the gym or something, you can just put me on in your headphones and you can kind of hear me talk about the cards, talk about my choices, and just kind of ramble on about the meta and why I think this deck is good and why I think X, Y, or Z card is good in the current format. All right, guys, I won't keep you here any longer. Peace.